Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forgotten Generation podcast, hosted by Troy Njenje Mbanga. This podcast is about amplifying young people's voices and the journeys they're on. I am joined by Danielle, who is a youth advocate and a young NCB advisory group member, and also a college student. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi, I'm Danielle. As Troy said, I'm in year 12, so sixth form age, and I've been in MCB with Troy and a couple other amazing youth opportunities, which I'm excited to talk about today.
Yes, so it's so good to have you on today's episode. And the first question is, what is your youth social action journey?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. For me, this kind of started like on a whim. So I was 13 and I was in a lesson and I remember watching a video about youth parliament, about some elections. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And then from there, I joined my local youth council that same summer. And that's actually how I found out about YNCB, because they advertised so many opportunities. So from there, I got involved with that. And within youth council, I was a part of different campaigns like climate change, discrimination, really dipping my toe into all these things that I felt really passionate about and learning so many new things. I did some like leadership roles, so like social media, like scrutiny committees. It was really cool because I was really so much younger than I am now, 4 years younger. So I've really been able to learn a lot. And then I even joined some other local youth forums, like a mental health youth forum, because that was something I'd really been interested in and really wanted to support the work on that and learn more about. And I've been able to be a part of campaigns within youth council also at the same time with Bite Back and things like that. I think one of my favourite groups to be a part of has been YNCB, because I think we've been able to do so much amazing work together as a group. I've met amazing people like Troy, and I've been to so many amazing opportunities and just learned so much more about the youth participation and social action. So yeah, I think I'd say even though I joined randomly, it's really been quite fundamental in like changing my life. It's helped me get into like my new school and different things like that, and it's really built me as a person. Being able to speak to you like this, because I think I was more of a shy person when I was younger. So I think it's kind of brought me out of my shell and met like-minded people who kind of care about things that seem a bit too grown up, but they're really not, because they're the things that we should care about and decision makers should care about, and because they're young people's issues. If that answers my journey, it's been unexpected, but it's been amazing.
Wow, and just like where you've been and just how you've actually like managed to be who you are today is just so remarkable, and it's just so refreshing to hear that. And you are right about young NCB. It's such an amazing group to be part of, and the young people over there that really have like similar experiences but different ones, and we kind of like come together as a team to really tackle the issues that we face from different backgrounds, which I love. Who inspired you to make a difference and to be who you are in your journey?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because nobody around me is really interested in politics. Like in my family, I mean, I've got quite a few amazing, strong figures in my family, but no one in particular had an interest in like politics or social action or things like that. But I think definitely the values my mum has really inspired me, because although she doesn't do anything political, things like that, she like being caring and caring for others, because that's what she does in her work, really inspired me to kind of do that similar thing, because she's pushed me to, do the things I want and kind of given me the like freedom to say if I really wanted to volunteer at Bernardo's or join this thing. She's really helped me to do that. But I think another thing that's inspired me is maybe feeling that I didn't see people who look like me or from where I was from in these like spaces, and like sharing their voices, their stories, and the issues they find that are really important. So I think that's also inspired me to like fill that gap, and like because many young people never realize like what these opportunities are, and you kind of see the same people in those circles. So I really wanted to myself add another voice to this conversation, and it's really, I think there's been so many people I've met along the way that have also shaped my journey and added to different things. But I would definitely say it started with my mum and those values, and yeah.
Well, that's lovely. I'm so glad your mum helped you in that journey to find different things to do, came out of your shell to have a voice as well. And yeah, and you are so right, and so many young people from heritage don't really get an opportunity. I think it's so important that we highlight us guys, that we can actually do things like everyone else.
Yeah. exactly.
So, what has been like barrier that you faced in your journey? Has there been times where you felt like you couldn't have a voice, about you felt like you couldn't be listened to?
Yeah, I've definitely felt a barrier I've definitely faced is sometimes feeling that though you're so passionate about something and you think it's so important, the systems around you, the people around you aren't as like equally enthusiastic or a kind of resistant. So when I was a member of youth parliament, I was working on a local project in where I lived, and basically I had to engage with these head teachers and send them a form or they would fill out and it really feed into my research and things like that. But I found on the whole situation that there's lots of gaps in communication and scheduling, so we couldn't really work with that, and I couldn't really work with them and have much collaboration. So that really did put like a damper on the plans and that part of the project. And I think I really learned from that to be more resilient and to adapt the plan and reshuffle it. And that campaign then, took a different direction, but one that was 10 times more, I think, worth it and was really valuable for the change I wanted to bring and what we could bring to the young people. So I think sometimes that kind of represents what I think sometimes many people can feel is that you feel so passionate about something, but maybe the people around you are busy, even the adults, because they have different like expectations and different responsibilities. And even though you're so focused on this, they can't help you deliver that. But I think by staying consistent and staying true to your goal, I think that in the end it will work out. But that is definitely something that I've definitely faced in past years, especially with the roles I've had.
Those barriers, affect you, and and you should be strong by this. And I think it's such and remarkable, and what you said is so important. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
What are the three issues that you think young people are facing right now, and what do you want professionals, government ministers, even the Prime Minister, and to do even more better to support our voice?
Yeah, there's so many things that I feel like are going on right now and also always are going on. But I think one thing in particular, I think, is like safety and community. That could be either feeling like safe in public spaces and crime and things in local community and like community cohesion, which I guess has always sometimes issues with, especially when you're younger. But then also online safety, because a lot of, I know, like discussion about that in different youth circles. And I feel like we don't only need to like protect young people, but also empower them to, make decisions wisely and feel safe enough to interact in these different spaces, whether online, virtual, or in person, and feel a part of those communities that they hold most dear to them. I think, secondly, I would say maybe a lack of access to opportunities or spaces, sometimes called third spaces. So I remember when I was younger, I'm still young, but a couple of years ago when I would like go out with my friends to like town, the only places I felt I could go were like fast food and like things where you had to spend money, and especially in like the cost of living times. I mean, like, you don't always want to be spending money, or you want to just go somewhere free, like a youth center or community center or like a youth hub, whatever you have. But those spaces, especially where I lived, were quite there weren't many of those. And now there's progress right now, but that's something I think is especially important for young people, which links to the first issue, because if we have spaces to be, then we can really foster that sense of community and cohesion and feel safer in our communities. But equally, I think there's a feeling of lack of access to opportunities, one definitely being like maybe careers, opportunities, work experience, mentoring. That's something that I worked on as a member of youth parliament in my area, and still feel that is really important. Having just someone to talk to, maybe about your career in the future or other things that worry you, and just having positive relationships with people who can, from their experience, tell you how things have been. And I think there's not many opportunities for things like that right now, which would be quite good. And the third issue, I feel like, which is an issue that's always been long standing, but we've really seen more since like post 2020, post COVID, is like mental health. And one thing I researched as a member of my youth council was youth stress. And one thing we really found was stress about the future, being really about like financial worries is one, but the future was quite a big deal. So people worrying about what they were going to do next. And I think that kind of leads on to like mentoring, having schemes like that, which I think I would definitely ask the future government, future prime minister, or current ones now, to invest in things like that, mentoring, more work experience schemes, or because I understand schools have a bigger role to play in that conversation than local government or national government. But I really feel that it would be great if the whole system could work together to support young people in all of these ways, whether it's just actively listening to us, like, and actually, it's the thing we always say in youth participation, but getting us in the conversations, because it's way easier if you get us in the conversations. We can tell you what has worked for us, what hasn't worked for us. And, you know, you save your time, you save money that can then go to more youth projects, and we have better lives now and better lives for the next generation of young people. So that's definitely one thing. And then on the topic of spaces, I think I'd really ask ministers, MPs, all of those figures to really invest or revitalize, you know, those third spaces like youth centers, community centers, things like that. So young people can have, like, you know, spaces where they feel safe from home and can just add to their ecosystem and their life and give them more opportunities to different activities and things like that outside of their home. So from those issues, I think the main solutions come from having conversations like we are now. As rose-colored glass as it sounds, I guess actually having these important people like support, use our voices, use these experiences and feed it into their work, which is what we always say, but really would be great if it could happen. Yeah.
Absolutely think on the issues that you said are so vital and so important. You know, youth clubs and more centres. I think that's important actually for the engagement for young people, of getting people to have like a social life and be able to like have opportunities to have them access to. I think it's important. And you touched on mental health. That's a thing that is always ongoing, but I think it's important.
Yeah.
More support and more access in that. I think just more understanding from professionals on that. Touching about jobs as well. Like, I think that's important because there is so much going on with like young people not able to access jobs and opportunities because maybe the employers really don't know how to train those young people, or maybe it's a skill set that's lacking for young people to have a job. And I think it shouldn't be the case, should it?
Yeah, exactly. Because even me myself have tried to just find like jobs just around, like, you know, working in a shop or working in a restaurant, things like that. But there's already this like barrier that you have to know someone or things like that. And most young people don't have those like connections. And that's a really big barrier because just even at this age, just having a job it might not be your forever career or something like that, but it's getting you on your feet and it's getting you some money to start investing in your future and thinking about things, maybe higher education, maybe apprenticeships, maybe going into work, starting your own business. But just not being able to have this initial experience can really dampen and slow down your progress, or can kind of make you feel kind of pessimistic about what you're going to be doing next, because you see maybe your friends having jobs or things like that and you don't have that same success.
Exactly. And it can be so hard to be able to get a job and do the application process, all of the stuff that is be able to get a job and all the things that you need to do can be very tricky for young people. And I think we need actually more like training, you know, and more people like support people who can support those young people. And I think that's important. Also, do you think the mental health services need to be more better as well, like, with the waiting times? That's been going on for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think I mentioned I was in a like county-wide youth mental health forum, and that was the one thing we always brought up. Now, I don't have my own experience, but I've heard the experience of people that have gone through that system, naming things like CAMS and the waiting times being so long, and just the idea of waiting for support or just waiting for maybe a diagnosis or a consultation already adds to what you're going through, and especially as a young person where you're not just like, things don't happen in isolation, because as when you're waiting for your diagnosis, you're going through maybe exam, outside family issues, just so many things are going on around that and just don't help you in how you are. And I think like health, both physical and mental, are just things that everybody should feel entitled to feeling the best they can in themselves. And if they need to seek support, they should be able to have access to that on a real time. So I definitely agree with you with the way waiting times are going. It's kind of appalling, really. It's really sad because many young people are suffering and the systems aren't improving. As I said a moment ago, health are just so foundational in who you are and what you feel like you can do. And it's really saddening to know, like, I've known people that have gone through things, and I've heard their stories, and they've said the same things, the waiting times, the not getting consultations, not getting diagnoses, and these things aren't changing. I'm sure there's measures in place, but the people whose lives are being affected aren't seeing the change. Yeah.
Exactly. Something I think government needs to like and take account for and understand that these issues are gonna keep going if it's not being looked at, if it's not being accounted for, you know, and speak to those young people who are going through those mental health problems and issues, because it's no good just like and assuming that everything's okay, that everything's all great. Actually, it's not, and it's a big thing. You know, CAMS is, you know, waiting times. A lot of people have said not much support has been given to them over there, and also just everything with just like exam pressures as well. It's really hard because like there's so much expectation from teachers thinking actually, you know, like for these people need to be able to and achieve these grades to go like lots of different places like unis or maybe colleges, but it can be really hard for those young people. It's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure, and I think it shouldn't be the case because, like, and when you do an exam, and it's okay because it shouldn't actually and define who you are, even if you don't get the grades that you want, even if you get the good grades, that's brilliant, but even if you don't, and it shouldn't matter because you tried your best. But lots of teachers pressure you into thinking you need to do this, you need to do that. And, you know, and you don't have to, because I'm sure you can actually do other ways of learning. Maybe you can go to maybe like a different route.
Yeah, I definitely think trying to tell myself the same thing, because I'll have my like year 12 exams in a couple weeks. I think I need to really understand that it's said so commonly, but like the grades you get don't define you. It doesn't define, like, it doesn't say you can always progress and you can always do better. But I think the school system, because sometimes it's taught, we're not really taught to like see progress as like something ongoing, but something that just happens. If you don't see it happening, and then you haven't like improved. But you see progress in different ways, and a number, a letter of a grade won't tell the whole story of the work you've put in and the different methods of learning and things like that, and maybe a rigid structure of a testing in some certain way doesn't tell the full picture of how, you know, engaged you are with your craft or your subject or your like topic. So yeah, and so then so much stress comes from the fear of maybe failing or not doing as well as you want to, which just adds on to the many things that are going on in your life. And school should be a place, of course, testing does teach some valuable things, but it should also be a place of empowerment and actually enjoying what you're doing.
Exactly. Thank you so much for the issues that you said. Those issues are very important, and I really hope our professionals listening to this can really take away on what you said, as it's very important. And so, what is your advice to a young person wanting to make a difference but don't know how to?
I would say, everybody says about everything, just start somewhere. Because just the fact that you're interested in it is already a gift enough. Because as I said, I found out about these opportunities on a complete random occasion, wasn't intentional, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done. But if you have the interest to start, just start somewhere. You might start in a youth forum, a youth council, on some advisory board, or just attending some workshop or a session, and maybe it might feel, it might feel challenging. You're hearing words, ideas, phrases you've never heard before, and it might sound like a different language, but keep on going because, you'll start understanding it and you'll start having your own opinions and feeding into conversations. And it might not feel like, oh, you're making so much change, but don't underestimate the value of small actions and how they can add up. And you could be like, change is gradual, it's not instant, and your voice could be improving things for maybe something you'll go through in the future, or some support or some service or a topic that will affect you or people or improve the service or whatever your area is for the next generation. And that can just have amazing knock-on effects, but not only for the impact you'll make, but the impact and change you'll have in yourself, because the participation itself matters to your own change. As I said, for me, I was quite shy and quite resistant in giving my opinions on things and being quite indecisive because I didn't know, because I wasn't really given so many opportunities to think for myself and tell people what I think. But I think just going through this experience has really taught me so much. And so even if you're hesitant about starting, just start. any of the opportunities you have, it might be even in school, you might have opportunities. Start somewhere, because you'll slowly learn about yourself and you'll slowly find the issues you care about and can really add to that. Because it took me quite a while to find my flow in youth council, in youth parliament, but I can say I've gotten the most out of those opportunities. I think I've given what I can and gotten a lot in return. So I would say, to sum that my advice up, is start somewhere. Your small actions matter. And also, if what you feel is important, maybe a topic that's so important to you, but it's not being talked about, that doesn't mean it's not important, but it just means that people haven't found it yet. People haven't articulated it. Yeah, and there might be a need for it that's gone unsaid, but if you say something, somebody out there is like, wow. Because I have an example of that, because in my local area, I really wanted to do a free uniform swap because that was a really big issue. And it was not something that had never really been done, to my knowledge, in the area on the scale that I wanted to do it. But I was able to run that, and then that need was really highlighted, and then we still have things going on like that before. But just from saying what you thought was important, that's then been, other people have really needed that, and you've really then helped other people, and you've also grown as a person. So don't underestimate your ideas, or the little things, or things that you might think aren't important, because they are to you and they may be to someone else, most definitely. Yeah,
I absolutely love that advice. So and incredible, and you are so right. Keep going. Like do like a youth club, or do like a youth voice. That in a way can go a long way. So thank you for that.
yeah.
And to finish this episode, what would be your A Forgotten Generation podcast quote, and to sum up your journey in a whole?
I would say, I think this is in like a storybook or something, but slow and steady wins the race. Because I would say growth takes time. And as I said before in the advice, you don't always feel your impact immediately, and you might face setbacks, but like, you grow into the role, you go into your place, and then you can just give so much to your community on whatever scale. So slow and steady wins the race. That's what I would say.
I love that. Slow and steady wins the race, and that's a brilliant way to finish this episode. So thank you so much, Danielle, for coming on today to really talk about your youth journey and your voice, and to inspire others.
Thank you, Troy. It's been really exciting to talk to you today.
Thanks for listening to the podcast episode. This is a Beaver Change Media Network production. Please support the podcast by subscribing and rating the podcast. I'd love to hear what you like and what could be better for future episodes. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram and iwill.troy, and also on X, iwill_Troy. Tune in to next week's episode.